think you're looking at Los Angeles in 2029? Guess again, Snowflake. You're looking at Australia right now in the hellscape that is wokeness and the woke mind virus. And the only thing standing against it is people who are refreshingly anti-PC like me. Australian conservatives like me.
The red mist of socialism has descended on the Western world.
I firmly believe that if Donald Trump doesn't win, the best opportunity we've got to get rid of this whole green energy scam, the wokeness, and a whole bunch of other stuff is lost.
This will be the Soviet Union of Australia in no time.
You might be wondering, who's our John Connor in the resistance fight against the wokeism mind virus Skynet? What's our ultimate weapon? I'll tell ya, it's having a good time, just like real normal people do actually, and having a real Aussie conservative laugh. Watch this.
Aren't you a nice crowd? You know, I haven't seen so many stars since I was lying on my back in Lonsdale Street, staring at humanity.
Take that, Skynet. He even used humility like a real person who knows how to have a good time would. Conservatives around the nation were up in arms, celebrating this victory against wokeism. George Christensen highlighted it, and so did Sky News. They wrote a whole article about how great it was that he told a real joke. Can't handle that I'm out there having fun, having a good conservative laugh and celebrating the Dons' win? Can't handle that I'm a conservative who knows how to have a laugh and enjoy myself? Well, why don't you cry harder, you little triggered snowflake leftist bitch? Yeah, that's right, you heard me, you little bitch. I'm fun. I'm funny. Conservatives are funny, and we know how to enjoy ourselves at Cpac 2024.
Andrew Cooper here at Cpac. It's amazing. We're about to start, about to go live. We'll have the national anthem, we'll have the opening show, and then the great Warren Mundine will make the opening address. I can't wait. See you soon.
Oh, does this portrait of Donald Trump for auction offend you? Why don't you cry harder about it, you little bitch? Last I checked, it wasn't illegal for conservatives to have fun, yet I naively thought that after financier and media backer of Cpac 2023, Alan Jones, basically seems to have left the country amid a fresh spate of child sexual abuse allegations from people, I kind of thought that they wouldn't have the gall to attempt this again. I thought they might take a little break. Never underestimate the gall of conservatives. Just like you should never underestimate how funny and cool and fun they are. Look at these guys. Look at these funny guys. Know how to have a laugh, know how to party. And if you don't like it, why don't you cry more delicious snowflake liberal tears, you little bitch cuck snowflake Democrat? Huh? I bet you voted for Kamala in the US election. Yeah? Didn't ya? That's right, I'm going to be drinking your liberal tears out of my 2016 cup that I bought, labelled Liberal Tears. One I bought from Amazon.com. I'm going to drink your tears now that the election is over. God, I wish I was over there.
Well, I don't get a vote, but I would be looking, and if I had time, I would be over volunteering to assist them. But
Trump tapped into something more instinctual in the American people, making America great again.
This guy did a whole speech for people suffering from geographic dysphoria. That's my diagnosis for the disease afflicting most conservatives at conferences like this, who either are the type who really didn't care or know anything about politics before Trump came along and made it WWE-style entertainment that catered to their feelings, or they're kind of dyed-in-the-wool old conservatives who are now stuck having to pander to that demographic.
Trump's America First notion struck a chord with many of us here, many of us who are longing for a non-Labor government that puts Australia first.
Oh, Alex, I totally agree that the best way to express isolationist Australian nationalism is by fixating on American culture war material. Totally. I did love this bit where he defined wokeness, then characterised his entire worldview completely in step with his definition of it.
I should really be specific about what I mean when we talk about wokeness, because it's overused. To me, it's a perpetual victimhood narrative. It's a so-called awareness of systems of oppression that really aren't about anything real or actual. Here in Australia, it's now more common to talk about that felt sense of losing our sense of culture and our national heritage. I think we find that everywhere we go now.
All the voices in my head trying to make me out to be less of an Australian than I really am, they're so offended. They're such little bitches. They're so woke. Don't worry, the senator didn't leave the stage without firing at least one humour salvo at Marxist Skynet.
Thank you, Brisbane. It's great to be here. Beautiful weather. Your football team is far too good. So don't feel sorry for me. I've only followed football for 45 years and you just come up here and win them all the time. Don't worry. Not a problem.
The best Australian conservative joke is when you do a fakey acknowledgement of country, though. That really gets up the wokesters' skins and the Aboriginals. They did it last year. It was the best joke from Cpac 2023. If you watched my video back then, well, guess what? They haven't quit now. Why would you? It's a good joke.
Look, I'd like to start with an acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge all the people who stood up to the COVID lockdown thuggery. And
firstly, I'd like to acknowledge Warren, Andrew, and the donors and the volunteers who are the traditional custodians of Cpac Australia.
We're terminating the left in Australia, just like the Don did in America, again, with a good sense of humour and a really fresh, relatable approach. Alright, so far, I admit, it's a giving conservative cringe compilation, which I also admit a lot of my videos on this kind of thing tend to do. Here's a list of all the substantive material that got addressed in one way or another at Cpac. I will not be taking the hours required to explain why I'm right and why the speakers are wrong on every subject listed in here. This is not that kind of video. I'll respond here and there, but chiefly I'm concerned with the foibles and the trends and the insecurities and the weaknesses and the flaws that make up Australian conservatives on the political end of the spectrum when they get together. That's what Cpac is really, really handy for. That's why I find it entertaining and worthwhile to look at. If you'd rather I did something else, feels a little like saying I'd rather Charlie XCX make an album of hair metal. The energy you're spending on what you'd rather happen should be spent on locating the thing you want to happen elsewhere where it's actually happening. Because it is. Someone else is doing it. It's just not me. Alright mate, okay, great. Go on, I'll bite. You want substance? I'm going to give you the most boring man at Cpac 2024.
So I want to do my best to tell you something you may not know, to give you some information that you may find useful.
The biggest snooze fest here. This incredibly boring man, Matthew Sheehan. Here he is basically gloating about Advance's key role in defeating the voice referendum and asking for people's money.
Many of you I know have given money to help build schools, hospitals and art galleries. And that is all good and worthwhile work. And you should be commended for it. But a warning of caution. You can do all of this, but unless you win the battle of ideas, all your work and all your financial contributions may ultimately come to naught. Australians give approximately 16 billion a year to various charities, and that's billion with a B. But only 50 million with an M, of that annual sum goes to the political parties and organisations such as Advance on our side of politics who are trying to win the battle of ideas, which holds the whole show together.
Okay, so stop donating to hospitals and start paying for this cunt to do campaigns like Greens bashing. The reason that I'm playing this fucking snooze fest of a bloke is because he is right. They did play a fundamental role in the referendum. They do have a lot of campaigning power good to go now. They are the get-up of the right, if you will. And they're about to turn all their energies, or they've already started doing so, against the Greens. And I think it's worth knowing what they're about. Listen to this man's lines carefully, because you're about to start hearing a lot of right-wing politicians saying exactly the same thing. And I want you to remember that you heard it first from him.
They are not the party of Bob Brown. They are the party of ice and heroin. They are the party that want to tax your inheritance, weaken our borders and gut our military. And they have real power. They are not about the environment anymore. In fact, they couldn't give a damn about it. Put simply, they are not who they used to be. We launched Green's Truth months ago, and we intend to keep it running and evolving all the way to the next election and beyond. While the parties are still doing pre-selections and working out their election promises, we're going to be out there talking about...
Oh, sorry, I slipped off.
Every time I go to a modern art gallery, there's a lot of super intelligent people telling you it's really good, right? And you sort of look at it and you think, yeah, maybe these lines, they must have some deeper meaning, and I want to be smart. I don't want to be left out. So I might have to find something in this melange in front of me. But all of us, right, all of us, at the back of our mind, we're thinking, you know, my 7-year-old could do this.
The humour there for you from professional coal fondler Matt Canavan to wake you back up. It is a joke, but it's also that typical kind of conservative, everyone's looking down on me, chicken feed thing that they do.
I get so much more wisdom when I'm walking down the streets of Rockhampton than I normally do in the weeks upon end I spend in Canberra.
I think what he's trying to say is that he manages to blow more FIFOs and inseminate more beef cattle in Rockhampton than in Canberra.
Last year at this conference, I told you the misinformation laws would be the biggest assault on freedom of political communication in Australia's peacetime history.
There's a lot of jobbing that goes on at Cpac, and this guy's certainly no exception. This is Daniel Wild from the IPA. He did introduce his speech by saying that he talked about the same thing at last year's Cpac. He really did. He actually did the same sort of speech, more or less, with the words changed. This old Les Patterson serial upskirter looking motherfucker, Ian Plimmer, basically stood up and plugged all of his books. Amazing. Not just the recent one, but all of them.
This book called Climate Change Delusion and the Great Electricity Rip-Off. We put out this book called Green Murder. This one here is for ankle biters, and that's for 8 to 12-year-olds. This one's for teenagers. This book was released today.
When Ian's not on trains opening his overcoat, he's busy being Australia's leading climate denier and serving on the boards of many mining companies. He has many mining company directorships, which apparently have no impact on his beliefs. It's all principle with this guy.
For more than 80% of time, we've had more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than now. So it looks as if carbon dioxide is not driving climate change. No one has ever demonstrated that human emissions drive warming. We're not in a major mass extinction of life. It would be good, I could give you a few names for the extinction list, but we are not in a period of extinction. We're in a period of species turnover.
We're in a period of repeating the talking points espoused by Advance Australia's anti-net zero campaign, dubbed Not Zero. That's what he's doing. That's what he's paid to do. Good on him. Gotta earn your bread somehow, don't ya?
On day one in office, after Mr. Dutton wins the next election, you immediately deal with ACMA. That's the Australian Communications and Media Authority. For those of you who don't know, it's got $120 million a year budget and about 500 staff. Well, on day one that Mr. Dutton takes office, he should fire the CEO, fire the chair, fire the deputy chair, and all 5 board members.
You'd think to yourself, these guys are about to, honestly advocate some Javier Milei style slash the public service stuff. And he is, in a way. But fundamentally what he's doing is asking for a job. Listen to this.
And then when you go to repeal this, the Senate's going to take quite a different view. When it's got Andrew Bolt and me and John Roscom and Margaret Cunneen and Roger Franklin and those sort of people in the upper echelons. Why don't our side of politics do that? Because that's what you should do on day one.
You know what the lefties would hate? You know what would trigger the wokesters? If you gave me a big promotion. Yeah, that'd get them.
Well, hello everybody. Hello fellow Conservatives.
Liz Truss here is fresh off the shortest and most disastrous Prime Ministership in UK history, and now she just gets her work touring around the world's conferences doing this Dorothy the dinosaur Conservative shit. Instead of telling Jeff to wake up, she tells you about the red mist of socialism.
They talk about the environment. They talk about human rights. They talk about equality. They mean divisive identity politics. They mean denying basic biology and saying we don't know what a woman is or a man is because of transgender ideology. And what they're against are the things that we believe in. Patriotism, the nation state, the family, business, free markets. That's what they're against. They're against Western civilization.
They say there is a large dinosaur behind me, but there is not one, and I will not turn around.
We relegated our most quintessential Australian folk song to 1984 Memory Hole.
Senator Bridget McKenzie wrote her speech the night before, so she was relegated to unfocused ramblings about how waltzing Matilda had fallen victim to the woke police.
How many young migrant children today would know what a billabong is? What a coolabah tree is? Or, heaven forbid, a jumbuck?
But my favourite bit of jobbing on the day came from this woman, Helen Dale here, who got up to do a fairly conventional turf speech about J.K. Rowling and, you know, definitions of gender and sex and so on and so forth. Listen to this in her introduction.
So we've got a situation now where someone like Rowling could not be cancelled. She was uncancelable. She was too big to cancel. I was able to, after a cancellation attempt directed at me in 1995, in my case by the Jewish lobby, I was able to move sideways into the professions and have a lucrative and entirely appropriate career for me. It just meant that for many, many years I wasn't a writer.
I don't know if you remember who this person is. It's really funny to remember. A lot of Conservatives do operate the way they do because they have a skeleton in their closet. Helen Dale is Helen Darville, formerly. Also, Helen Demidenko, formerly. Well, so she said. It's confusing because Helen has problems, or used to have problems with notions of identity. Anyway, not gender identity, personal identity. She had a Miles Franklin Award-winning book, which was said to be, and which was billed by her as based in non-fiction, or having a non-fiction background, and being based on interviews with her relatives, her ancestors, who were said to have survived the Holocaust. Except for, as it came out, it was all made up. She'd essentially made it all up to help promote her book. This is a famous literary hoax, and she went into complete persona non grata hiding for a long time because she was so trashed. She was shamed. And this is what she means by being cancelled by the Jewish lobby. Anyway, I think that deserves reminding because, you know, people of my age might remember Helen, but younger people might not know who we're dealing with here. Absolute fraud. Fortunately, no one else at Cpac 2024 is getting cancelled by the Jewish lobby because this is the place of vociferous decriing of Israel and its genocide. Let's look at some of that.
I've had the opportunity to visit Israel many times in my life, and most recently was about 4 months ago, where I was able to visit Kibbutz Berari and also the Nova Music Festival site.
Well, yeah, look, I was just over in Israel and I got the opportunity to see a lot of what Hamas wrought and wreaked on the day. I was over there with Ajax, and
we don't need to be apologists on the floor of the UN like our foreign minister was. Do not say we stand with Israel's right to defend themselves and then call for a ceasefire every time they try and defend themselves.
Just so as you're aware, most of these people think, or at least are portraying Albanese and Wong as like from the river to the sea tier pro-Palestine. Do you know what I mean? There's a real disconnect between these people and the rest of us.
We have within our midst hundreds and thousands of people in our nation who now openly engage in public displays of the glorification and celebration of violence directed towards one group of Australians based on their religious views. One cannot escape the conclusion that this wave of migration, compared to other waves which did work, this wave of migration, ill-suited to our culture and our norms, is being done to dilute our majority culture and weaken our way of life.
That's the IPA's Daniel Wild saying that it's nasty Muslim migrants who are making people like you and me, who have attended the many, many pro-Palestine actions since 2023, they're making us feel that way. It's not all the dead children, it's the Muslim migrants, the Islams, mate.
Police heavy-handedness that verged on thuggery didn't affect them. And isn't it interesting to see that the Victorian police, who had no compunction about handcuffing pregnant women and basically beating people up in the streets, all of a sudden they've discovered that, you can't really deal with protesters because these people have rights. What a surprise when you're an anti-Israel protester, you have rights.
You'll have to remind me to tell my comrades who've been shot by rubber bullets, just the same as anti-lockdown movement protesters were, that in fact they're getting an easy ride from Vicpol. Anyway, let's hear a conservative Israel-Palestine joke to lighten the mood. Take it away, Rowan Dean.
Cpac, the Conservative Political Action Conference here in wonderful Brisbane. The conference that is to woke identity politics, anti-Semitism on steroids and climate alarmism what a buzzing pager is to an Anwar parent-teacher evening.
He's talking about the pager explosions that Israel did, in Lebanon by distributing pages to lots of people. Apparently Hezbollah also killed some healthcare workers and some children. Here's the funeral for a little girl who was killed in one of those explosions. No word back on whether dead kids arouse Rowan Dean. I wouldn't suggest that that's the case. I don't think he gets an erection from dead kids. I don't think they make him come.
Groups of individuals have demonstrated and chanted the equivalent of death threats to Jews. And these are in scenes reminiscent of Berlin in the 1930s. And we know where that led to, don't we?
This is ultra-Zionist Holocaust survivor Susie Smead. They trot her out to run local cover for complicity in a genocide. She talks about her family's history surviving the Holocaust, or her own.
I think back to the crowds of Hungarians who watched my family walk to the ghetto in Papa 80 years ago. And they did nothing except gloat.
So at the start of her speech, Susie tells the tragic cautionary tale of her ancestors, her family being forced to march amidst a bunch of raving ethno-nationalists who were, previously their neighbours, gloating about their demise. They were all being sent to Auschwitz. And it's a cautionary tale because we're never meant to repeat it in history. Unless, of course, they're dead Lebanese kids.
I'm very passionate about Israel. I've been there a number of times. It's such a remarkable contributor to the betterment of society and mankind in so many fields of endeavour: agriculture, science, medicine, technology, such as enhancing pager performance.
You're just like that crowd of Hungarians, you horrible old ethno-nationalist grot.
I am just one of 7.9 billion people on this planet. I am no different from those who eat, drink, and breathe to survive.
Oh, how noble of you to say so. This is one of a number of young, oddball conservative kids who are vying for the opportunity to be sent by the founders of Cpac along to Cpac in America, the real Cpac, next year.
Anxious and depressed, young Australians feel lost and without purpose. They've been failed by this age of convenience and hedonism.
I've always said that. Kids are such irresponsible hedonists. Hey, kids, want to talk about hedonism?
It is our history that inspires me. It is our culture that gives me grounding and gives me pride in our nation as we chart a course into a future unknown. I can say that Cpac USA would be undeniably consequential in developing my political journey, provide a platform to share Australian conservative thought internationally, and leave me with experiences and wisdom that I will share with my family and hopefully country in the future.
Take a pinger and fucking relax, you weird little shit.
The last 3 or 4 years, Australians have had the rude awakening. The government has a lot more power over their lives than they realised. And so...
Obviously, this guy's a bit different. Most of my audience should probably already know that this is Joel Jamal, the Turning Point Australia guy. I can't decide whether he looks more like Pee Wee Herman or Gumby. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I don't check on Joel much these days. He doesn't have much for me. Last time I saw Joel was in this interview with Diogo, a far-right content creator. Have a look at this.
Ever since the start of
turning point, Australian, since you brought this to life. This has been a major, discussion that you've been funded by Israel.
Yeah. You know where that comes from? I mean, fundamentally, it's people that on the left in Melbourne.
What people in Melbourne?
Well, I'm not gonna name a name here on this podcast, but. Well, because I don't have that in front of me. I mean, okay. I've been doing this. I've been doing this for a while now.
Tom Tanuki, is that one of them?
Man, honestly, I couldn't care less. These people just get the block from me.
You got to hand it to Diogo. That was pretty funny. Anyway, listen, these people have money for days. So, which little creek did they choose? All of them.
We can't actually split it. So we've come to the unanimous decision between two judges. We'll just take them all.
Never forget, guys. These are your political opponents. They're charmless. You might think they're oddballs. I certainly do. It's great to laugh at them. But remember, they got a lot more energy than us, and they got a lot more money. They will spend on these oddballs. Time and again, campaign after campaign, until they influence elections. In fact, sometimes I think our only hope is that sometimes they're so charmless and so odd that no amount of money could ever make them win anything. And let's round out on a perfect example of that. Here we have my favourite talk. It's Natalia Ilusina. She's a bit part sort of Sky News presenter. And, she just... I don't know why she's around, but she is. And here, just take it away, Natalia.
Last month, I celebrated 10th anniversary of becoming an Australian citizen. Thank you for that warm welcome. Growing up, I saw the royal family and I was dreaming of marrying a prince one day. I do not regret that didn't happen though. I'm still on a journey to pick my AFL team. So, still to go. But talking seriously, the mere fact that I'm standing here giving that speech with an accent is a testament of that Australia is neither racist or misogynistic country. Back to me. What about me? I only came here 15 years ago. I have nothing to do with what happened to Aboriginal people. Neither my family, neither my mum and dad ever met them. Well, hopefully when they visit next time, I'll introduce them to a couple. I will not let socialist and other rotten agendas corrupt Australia, which I'm proud to call home. And thank you so much. You've been so amazing. I congratulate Australians on winning the lottery of life.
Cheers for that, Natalia. Thank you. Look, I don't necessarily feel like I've won the lottery of life after spending tens of hours looking at these lepers. I hope you feel like you've won the lottery of life having watched my video. I trust it's a pressure valve release for you, whilst also giving you a generalised view of what these people are talking about. I always get commentary from people after they look at stuff like this that I make. They go, "Oh, well, I can't believe you sat through all that." Well, you know what I say to people increasingly these days? You should be sitting through some of it. I think the problem with a lot of the left in Australia, as with Overboard, is that they have no idea what their political opponents, their real political opponents, are actually talking about. You need to correct that. You need to know what your enemies are up to. So I can show you this, but I hope it's an onboarding ramp for you to start learning what your enemies are really on about a bit more. Anyway, I hope to see you back next year. And if you appreciate my content, you know where to go. Patreon.com/Tom Tanuki. Thank you.